When you sent that deep dive request over about ATDC, I got to say those startup stories kind of suck you in.
Yeah, there's something about an idea that becomes something real, you know, something that can change how everything works.
For sure. And ATDC, they really seem to have a knack for finding those ideas. Like Greenlight, they started with ATDC back in 2018, and now they're valued at over $2 billion. dollars.
It's remarkable.
How do they do it? What's the secret?
Well, that's what we're here to figure out. You've done your research, that's for sure. Program descriptions, events,
Yeah.
even a whole podcast transcript.
Well, if you're diving, you might as well go deeper.
Yeah.
Although I did see some of those event links weren't working.
Yeah, that happens when you're dealing with an organization moving as fast as ATDC.
Mm-hmm.
They're constantly changing and updating, just like the startups they work with.
Right. So let's cut through all of that and get to the good stuff about ATDC.
Okay.
First things first, for anyone who doesn't know, ATDC stands for the Advanced Technology Development Center. Basically, it's Georgia's tech incubator. They're all about helping startups launch and grow and really thrive.
And, it's not just any incubator being at Georgia Tech, which is already one of the top tech schools in the U.S.
Yeah.
It gives them a real edge. I mean, we're talking about world-class researchers, state-of-the-art labs, a huge pool of talented engineers, things most startups just dream about.
Like a secret weapon.
Exactly.
But here's what I find really interesting. They have a no equity approach. So they're invested in your success, but not in owning part of your company. That's huge for startups who don't want to give up control early on.
It's a big deal in the startup world, for sure. Usually, everyone wants a piece of the pie. But ATDC is all about helping companies grow for the long term. It's a real partnership. And not just with Georgia Tech. They work with corporate sponsors, too. Big names like Amazon, Home Depot, Visa, just to name a few.
Those are some big players for sure. They clearly see how much ATDC brings to the table for these startups and the whole tech world.
And it's not just an Atlanta thing either. ATDC has a presence all over the state in Athens, Augusta, Savannah. They're helping entrepreneurs all over Georgia.
So we've got this amazing network, incredible resources, and they're not even asking for a piece of the company.
Yeah.
How does that translate into actually supporting these startups? What does it look like to be a part of ATDC?
So imagine a clear path that guides startups every step of the way. That's basically what ATDC has put together with their program structure.
Okay, so how does that work? What are the different levels and what makes each one special?
They've got three main tiers: educate, accelerate, and signature. Kind of like climbing a mountain. Each level gets you higher up and gives you more support along the way.
So educate is like base camp, getting your footing, figuring out the lay of the land.
Exactly. Educate is for those who are just starting out. Maybe they're still working on their idea. They might not even have what they call a minimum viable product yet. Basically, that's a simple version of the product they can test out.
I see. So it's about building that foundation before trying to grow too quickly.
Right. Then you got accelerate. This is where things really start to pick up speed. This tier is for companies who are past the idea stage. They've got their MVP, maybe even some customers, and they're ready to grow.
What kind of help do they get at this level?
Accelerate is where ATDC's network really comes into play. Startups get paired up with experienced entrepreneurs who can mentor them based on their needs. They get connected with investors who are looking for companies like theirs. And then there's the co-working space right in Tech Square. Being surrounded by that energy, all those innovators, it's a game changer.
It's like being dropped into the center of it all. It must be a lot to handle, but so rewarding.
You got it. And then for those companies that are ready to scale up quickly, really make a splash, there's signature.
Okay, so this is the peak of the ATDC experience. What makes this one stand out?
Signature is all about tapping into everything Georgia Tech has to offer. We're talking top-notch researchers, advanced labs, experts in intellectual property, things most startups can only dream of. This is where that Georgia Tech connection really pays off.
Sounds like a recipe for some serious innovation. I'm looking at this portfolio.pdf. You shared some of these signature companies and what they're doing. It's amazing.
It really shows you how ATDC helps all kinds of companies innovate, like Animal Repair Shop, for example. They're using mixed reality, mixing the real world with the virtual world to totally change animal healthcare.
Wow, that's really cool. It makes you wonder, what's their secret? How do they take these startups from a cool idea to something that changes an entire industry?
It's more than just the programs themselves. There's something about ATDC, something that gives them an edge.
The ATDC advantage. It's like they found the magic formula or something? What is it about how they do things that get such amazing results?
Well, it's a lot of things coming together. But one of the big ones is the coaching they provide. We talked about mentorship, but this is even more than that. Remember that our team page you found. Cybersecurity pros, AI specialists, even a venture capitalist right there on staff. Those aren't just mentors. They're seasoned guides, people who've been through the startup world themselves.
They've lived it.
Exactly. They know firsthand what these startups are going through.
Yeah.
It's so valuable for a founder trying to build a business.
It's like having a trusted guide to help you navigate.
That's a good way to put it.
Speaking of navigating, let's talk about funding. Because a startup can't grow without fuel.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's another area where ATDC really shines. It's not just about giving startups money. It's about finding the right investors, ones who share their vision and understand their long-term goals.
Because not all investors are created equal.
Right? A bad fit with an investor can be a disaster.
Sure.
ATDC gets that they understand both the investors and the startups. It's like they're playing matchmaker, carefully connecting them in a way that can lead to real success.
And it's working if you look at the numbers. They helped ATDC companies raise $152.7 million in 2023.
It shows how effective they are. But funding is just one part. Another important aspect is connecting startups with corporations.
And again, it's about quality over quantity. They're not just throwing these startups to the wolves.
Right. Their Industry Connect program is a great example. They set up pilot projects between startups and big companies, giving the startups a chance to test their ideas in the real world.
Everybody wins. The startups get feedback and a chance to prove themselves, and the companies get access to the latest innovations.
And you can see the results. Companies like Predicto give a lot of credit to Industry Connect for helping them land big clients. Even the Harvard Business Review has praised ATDC for how they bring these companies together.
That's impressive. It seems like they've really figured out how to make these relationships work for everyone. But there's one more piece of the puzzle, right? What about the community aspect?
That's huge. ATDC understands that it can be lonely being an entrepreneur. They focus on building a strong, supportive community, and that's a big part of what makes them different. It's about creating a sense of belonging, a shared journey.
And that goes beyond just their own space events, workshops, even that podcast episode about female founders. It's all part of creating this really lively and inclusive environment.
Because anyone can be an innovator. By creating a space where everyone feels welcome and supported, ATDC is opening the door to even more talent and making the startup world more exciting.
So it's not just what they do, it's how they do it. Coaching, capital, connections, community, those are the 4 pillars. And when you combine that with their passion and how much they care about these startups, that's what creates the ATDC advantage.
It's an environment where success is almost inevitable, where innovation thrives, and ultimately it's pushing us all forward.
Well, that was a deep dive. We covered the programs, the advantages, even the secret sauce behind ATDC's success.
And just like those event listings, the startup world never sits still. Who knows what ATDC will come up with next?
That's what makes it so exciting. The possibilities are endless.